Hello, I'm Rebecca Gould, and I have the Treadle group called Treadle Sewing Machines and More. And this is one of a few videos on the Treadle sewing machine and embroidery. So welcome to my home in southern Indiana. It's a gloomy day here, but I have a lot of sunshine in my soul because I'm getting to share this with you. We have prepared our machine and we have prepared our hoop to begin thread painting. The first thing that you need to do now is remove the foot off of your sewing machine. Also, another thing to do, go ahead and date it because a year from now you're going to be able to look back and see your progress and you'll be much further along. It's really a good idea to sit down every single day and practice. This is kind of just like anything else that you pursue to achieve, you know, like piano playing or learning any new craft. You have to commit yourself to practicing it every day, and you will create a lot of ugly things before you master it. And it takes time, and I am still learning. There is so much to learn with this, but everybody begins somewhere. And so today's your beginning, and that's an exciting thing. Now, the majority of the threads that I use are the Floriani or the silky, or I'll use even all-purpose cotton. And when you use a variegated thread, it's really kind of fun. But the one I use the very most is the Floriani. Okay, so we've removed the foot and we have threaded our machine with the thread we want to use, and we have nearby a pair of embroidery scissors. I like the kind that have the curved edge. It helps you to get closer to the material when you're going to cut it. Next thing we're going to do is we want to bring our bobbin thread up. Now I'm going to start in a lower portion of my hoop in the beginning because we're just going to kind of do some scribbles. Lower it down and bring up your bobbin thread from the bobbin. It's really hard to see because this is a white thread, but it's there, trust me. Okay, now that we have our bobbin thread pulled up, we're going to pull our threads to an angle towards the back. We're going to reach under and lower this. The foot's gone, so we're going to lower this bar. And the thing is it's hard to remember to lower this. You know, when you see your foot, you know that you've got it up. But this is, you know, not quite as obvious. And it's something that I still struggle with today, is to remember to lower that foot. If you do not lower that foot, then you're going to have a bunch of threads underneath. It'll be your top thread all bundled up underneath your material, and it makes just a nest. So you really have to do whatever you can to try to remember to always lower your foot. And we're going to press that down, holding your threads. And give your hand wheel a little turn. And we're going to just go back and forth at a steady pace. And now that we're a little ways away, we can trim this thread. And if you notice the way I hold my hands, I will hold my hoop back here with my thumb, and I also use my pinky to kind of brace there. And then I use my pointer finger to press down, make sure my material is down there. So yeah, your hands are really close to your needle, so be careful. And I kind of do the same thing over here on the right side. And I try to keep in close proximity to where I am sewing and steady it. And I'm kind of pushing and pulling with my right hand, but you can do it with your left hand if you're more left-handed. And getting this pace natural and moving with your treadling and with your needle, to me, is probably the hardest part. In the beginning, I would end up pulling my needle and ripping the material, and it's really hard to get, you know, your hands, your feet, and your brain and your eyes all working together at a steady pace. So in the beginning, we're going to practice this. We're going to stop now though, because we're going to pull up our needle, pull this to the side, make sure our needle clears, and we're going to take a peek at the back side. I'm going to trim the thread here. In the beginning, you're really going to have to check your tension a lot. And as you can see, in the very beginning, this is when we first started, I did not have that pulled tight enough, and it made a little loop. But you can see how it is, the white thread is just pulling down the top thread a little bit, and that's how I want that. You can also see that I had some oil droplets, and I didn't catch that before I started sewing. I normally have like a little paper towel here, and I blot my sewing machine every once in a while because I oil my machine every time I use it. Just a little bit of oil. But I recently went through a thorough cleaning and really oiled the whole thing up. So that's gonna leave a little residue, a little liquid Dawn dish soap. I can wash that and get it out. But this is just a scrap piece, so I'm not worried about it. So I am happy with this. If you've got no thread that is colored coming through, that means that your bobbin is probably not tight enough, and you might need to tighten your bobbin, or it could be that your top thread is too tight and you need to loosen the tension there. And, you know, you loosen your tension. I'm gonna have to move you, sorry for shaking you. This is how you adjust your tension here. I'm gonna leave mine since I've got it pretty good and I'm happy with it. And I'd rather do adjustments here than messing with the bobbin. And with different thread changes, sometimes even a different color, because like your black and your red has more dye in the thread, and you have to change that tension in order to accommodate that. I've got a little thread wrapped around this screw here. I can fix it all later, but okay, gonna lift this up. My needle bar is lifted up. Gotta come back, and I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread again. Lower the needle bar. I'm just gonna turn it this time. You try to really hold that tighter and get it better. And you're gonna be doing this quite a bit until you have got your tension correct. And the thing is when you are doing an area where you're going to do a fill, and you're not just going around the edge, this is what you will do to it to make it to where the material doesn't kind of get all dilapidated. Like when I go to do one of these fills, I will go in the circle and go back and forth like that, just like this, and it kind of holds it all in place, and then I would start my fill. And by doing a fill, first we're going to do this, and I want you to practice till you get that, all your tension correct, and also get a feel for it. And I tell you, that takes a bit of doing. You probably won't sit down and just do it in one sitting, getting your tension, getting your hand and eye and feet coordination all together at the same time. I think this was the hardest part for me, and this is where I created a lot of ugly before I created something worth keeping. And I also went through a couple sewing machines before I found one that I liked. I don't know how much in the beginning was human error or just needing a better sewing machine for the task. But as I stated before, you really need one that is in top condition. Okay, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna start on this big circle. And you can just jump like that and later come back and fill this out. But now what I'm gonna do, I've lowered my needle bar. I'm gonna go around this, around the perimeter. And also really get acquainted with how your sewing machine sounds and hear how the thread is running smoothly. Get used to the sounds of your machine. Because the sooner that you stop, when things sound wrong, they probably are wrong. When all of a sudden it starts sounding different, you've probably got a tangle underneath in your bobbin case. And the sooner that you stop and check it all out and get situated, a lot of times my thread will like come out of the tension spring, or thread will get caught up in my bobbin case. Lots of things that are little minor things can happen, and all of a sudden the sound will change in my sewing machine. And if I catch that sound right away, I can avoid a lot of problems. Just stop it, readjust, and check everything and get started again. So while you're in this beginning stage, really listen to the sound of your machine and when it messes up, because you will have some mess ups. Pay attention to what that sounds like and what it feels like in your hoop. Okay, now like I mentioned before, we're gonna go and just make some lines across, because this helps to secure the fabric and helps it to not stretch as much. Okay, now I've done that pretty good. That's pretty good. And I've done the perimeter of where I want to go. Now I'm going to just work on filling. Whoop. See, did you hear that? Immediately I can stop and say, okay, something's not right here. I want to fix this. We got a little bit of a bundle up. So I'm just going to trim the threads, trim it all close. Pull out from underneath. And see, it doesn't look too bad underneath because I stopped right away. If I had kept going, it would have kept bundling up and made a big knot and a mess, maybe ripped my fabric, and you don't want to do that. So I nipped it in the bud. Gomer Pyle said that in one of the Andy Griffith shows. Nip it in the bud. At least I think it was the Andy Griffith show. I just know it was Gomer Pyle. Okay, I'm gonna pull that behind the needle. Sometimes if you want, you can even wrap that around. But I have found I really don't like that. I just like to hold it close and tight. Make sure my needle bar's down. And we're gonna go in for a fill again. Okay, now how you can do a fill, you don't want, first of all, don't do it too fast. And that may be what happened. And I just like to go in a circle. And I'm overlapping my stitches, trying to actually do a fill. Here, let me get a pen because I want to draw what I'm trying to do here. So what I'm trying to accomplish, we do this in chain stitching on a chain stitch machine. I'm going like this in my sewing. And overlapping. And of course this is like a magnified version, and if you get these lines close enough to your next stitch, then you have very little overlapping, and you're just filling in. So again, you know, it would be more like this. And you hope that your thread is kind of fluffing up around it. Because where you will get a lot of puckers is when you're going on top of it over and over and over and over. Or you will get a big hole where you've gone in the same spot multiple times. Or you'll rip your fabric, and more than likely you will break your thread. So if you can do that by overlapping and moving, you have a better chance. And that's how we do a fill. Okay, so you can practice this to get your tension right. Then you can practice filling in an area to secure it and then doing a fill. Now we'll go to another thing that you can practice. I would master this, then come back and master that. Okay, let's go and work on a straight line. Do this, come back over here. Make sure my needle bar's down. And when you can come and do, you know, where you're just outlining, which we already practiced on a circle. But sometimes you may want to go around your circle and make it like a little edging. And this takes a lot of practice to do, but I like to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then move up, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoop, see my fabric pulled up. That means that my fabric has come loose and I need to tighten it up. So let's undo that. Okay, I've rethreaded it, but also I wanted to show you what actually happened. Is this thread had gotten tangled around like this. And it was causing a bunch up there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 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 forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm trying to accomplish with that is like going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then forward a little bit, and then going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then going forward a little bit, so that you end up with, you know, a stitch like this that raises up, and then another one like this. That's what you're trying to do. And if you do that in white, it almost looks like little pearls. And it's good for going around a perimeter. And now the next one that we're going to do would be, you know, how we did the fill, where you're going like that. Well, this fill is just where you're doing running stitches back and forth. And I'll do that in the next circle. And that's good for, like, if you have a flower petal. Okay, say this is a flower petal. I know that's kind of crude, and you fill this all in with a color. And then you want to come back with another color and just make some detail work. That's what it's good for. So I'm going to pull up the thread, as always, because I'm starting in a new area and I had cut it. Lower down my needle bar. It was already lowered, but let's see if we can get this where you can see a little bit better. And I'm still going to do like a running stitch around the perimeter. And this is something I didn't tell you before. I'm going to go ahead and trim my end, but I want to make sure really that my needle is down, one, so that I don't cut my working thread. Okay, now we're going to just go around the perimeter here. Steady pace. It's practice, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then once again, I'm gonna go all over it to hold it in place, because this would be like a fill. I'm not gonna fill in the whole thing, I'm just showing you how to do it. But this really does. Did you hear that noise it was making? My thread had gotten caught again. There we go. This really does help to keep your material from puckering. Okay, now say I'm going to come back here and I'm going to start doing a fill. And, you know, I don't know what other people call this, but I just call it a running stitch. I'm just going to, it's great for filling. And you're trying to get it as close as you can to the other stitches so that you don't overlap too much. Now I'm going to go ahead and overlap too much, and you're going to see it starts making the clanky noise. It's going to cut the thread. It's pulling up the material bad because it's just overstitched. I didn't do it enough to actually break the thread, but trust me, it will break. So you're just wanting to come in beside each thread. Travel a little bit and do some more fills. Just a running stitch back and forth. It does create a different texture than doing the circle. When you do the circle, it almost looks more like sand, where you have different little tiny bumps. Whereas this, here, I'll go ahead and show you now. This looks more linear lines. You can see lines more. Let me fill that with the circle a little bit. Let me fill that circle a little bit more where we did the spiral, so you can see what that looks like versus the straight stitch. I'm not really sure if you can tell with this dark thread that on the left was the running stitch and on the right was a circular stitch. Sorry, I don't have a better example. The next thing I'm going to show you is talking about the satin stitch for a fill. So one thing I'd like to point out too that can be a problem that happens is a lot of times these corners will end up getting tucked under if you're not careful and you're not watching for it, and you will actually sew it to the back side of your work, and it's a real pain to get out. So you want to make sure that you've got all your ends pulled out when you go to embroider. Now once again, we pulled the thread bobbin up, and we will go around the perimeter, making sure my needle bar's down. We'll go around. And we will cut across the hole to reinforce it in different ways, even as tiny as this is. Okay, I'm gonna lower my needle, trim my other threads. We're just going to do a satin stitch where we go forward and back. It's really hard to get that rhythm. And that will create a nice little stitch. We can go over to this next one since we're practicing. And once again, just go around the perimeter, crisscross across it to secure it. And then we're taking kind of leaps. And then usually at the end of a satin stitch, I will just go around it again to kind of smooth out the edges. And jump to the next one. I kind of didn't jump far enough there, but go around it. Crisscross. Come back and start my satin stitch. Now, some people like to really build this up. And you can do that, and then go around it again. And then on to your next one. And then that's why these curved scissors are kind of nice, because you can trim and get really close in there. Okay, now this, and I did the curve, and I can go ahead and go over here and do this, but I just did this more or less for a running stitch. You know, just to practice moving your hoop around. Moving it side to side and moving it forward. It's kind of hard to do this because I've got the camera in front of me. Oops, I'm moving my camera. Anyway, you get the idea of practicing. This will help you to be able to sew this way and sew up and down, and even, you know, towards angles. Sorry, I'm just jostling you all over the place. But these are the beginning stitches that'll help you to do many, many designs. But there are many more stitches. And in the next video, I'll talk about resources, different books, different classes that I've taken that can help you in developing your skills. But these will keep you busy for a while. So I hope this information has given you a good start, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Good night, God bless, and don't forget to pray.